everybody. How you doing? Happy Thursday. Happy leap year. This day only comes every 4 years. I never did quite understand how people's birthday worked when their birthday only comes every 4 years. But anyway, how y'all doing? What's going on? How's life treating you? How you be being and such? Well, as many of you know, I am Dr. Lauren Pitts Bounds, licensed couple marriage and family therapist, and this is Dr. Pitts Tips Live. I bring this segment to you, this free session to you every Thursday from 7 p.m. to 7:30 ish Eastern Standard Time every Thursday. I missed you last week because I had to go to a business event that was just absolutely positively one of the most amazing events I had been to in a really long time. But super excited to be back with you tonight. And, people say, well, Dr. Pitts, why do you do it? Well, I do it because a lot of people won't go to therapy and they can benefit from therapy. And there's all of this stigma in our communities about therapy. And I said, you know what? They don't have to come to therapy. I'll bring therapy to them. So, I select topics that I believe are of extreme importance to you. I select topics that are showing up as recurring themes in the work that I'm doing with the individuals, the couples, and the families that I worked with day in and day out. And tonight we are talking about intimacy. Into me see. Now, I will tell you, one of the things that seems to be a common theme as it relates to intimacy is that when you say that word, a lot of people seem to think that sexual intimacy is the only type of intimacy that there is. But that's just simply not true. So I'm going to take a moment to give you the technical definition of intimacy because what do we know to be true about it? Even if you're just talking about sexual intimacy, it's extremely complex and it's extremely nuanced, and it comes down to one's ability to be acceptant of the innermost qualities that create who you are authentically. Your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, your moral code, your perception of yourself. And what do we know to be true? A lot of times people's perception of themselves is distorted. So we really have to look at how you view yourself, because how you view yourself is going to undoubtedly impact your ability to be able to connect with your intimate partner or others in your life. But for the sake of intimacy tonight, we're going to talk about it within the context of your romantic relationship, whether you're dating or married or whatever your intimate relationship status is. So what is intimacy? Intimacy is not just about physical. There's actually five types of intimacy, and all of them provide a means for being close to another person. So I'm actually going to break that down for you. I'm going to break that down. I'm going to tell you what the five different types of intimacy are and how to build a deeper connection with your romantic partner as your awareness, as your insight, as your knowledge about yourself and your romantic partner, again, whether it's somebody that you're dating, somebody that you're interested in, or somebody that you're actually married to. So when you look at what is intimacy in your relationship and why is it so important, it's the one-on-one connection, right? It's like, how am I relating to you? How am I able to synchronize our connection? And am I able to synchronize my connection with you in a way that you're willing to reciprocate? You have to be able to do that. Otherwise, intimacy is going to fall to the wayside. One of the things that I told you during the last session is this right here is your number one organ, right? If this is not right, it is going to adversely impact every other aspect of intimacy that's going on in your life, because it's intimacy is about how you're seen, how you're heard, how you're understood. It really comes down to acceptance. And if you don't feel fully accepted by your partner, then that makes being intimate with them a little bit difficult. But pause for a minute. If you aren't accepting of yourself, how can you then have a healthy, intimate connection with your partner? One of the things that I say to my clients all the time, and I actually convey this to them during the consultation, is that if your relationship with yourself is not healthy, it is undoubtedly going to adversely impact your relationship with your romantic partner, with your children, with your colleagues. It doesn't make a difference. It is going to be impacted. So I really want you to zero in on that because, and I'm going to keep saying it because it's a recurring theme that comes up. People are so accustomed to externalizing everything that's wrong in their life, and they don't oftentimes take the appropriate time to look within. Intimacy is no different. In order for you to have a healthy, intimate connection with your romantic partner, you first have to look within. How do you feel about yourself? Do you feel confident in your ability to be intimate? Because if you're not, I guarantee you it is going to have a negative impact on your relationship. And then you're opening yourself up for the fear of abandonment to come in, the fear of rejection to come in, the insecurities around thinking that you're going to be replaced, or he is looking at somebody else, or she is looking at somebody else, or he is desiring someone else, or she is desiring somebody else. And you have to be willing to recognize the importance of being honest with yourself first and foremost. Because if you cannot be honest with yourself about what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what your insecurities are, what your fears are, excuse me, then I guarantee you it's going to show up. It's going to show up in your relationship, and it's going to impact the intimate connection that you have with your romantic partner. Here's the thing that I really want you to think about, and I would encourage you to, for for personal development's sake, I want you to reflect upon the level of intimacy that you have experienced in your relationships throughout your life's journey. And I know some of you are still with your high school sweethearts or whatever the case may be. That's fine. That's totally fine. I'm not knocking that. All I'm saying is that even if you're someone that is in a long-term committed relationship with somebody that you were dating since you were 14 or 15, I'm sure you would agree that the intimacy that you all share has evolved. It's grown, it's changed, it's morphed, it's undergone a metamorphosis, if you will, just as the relationship has over time, because who you may be today at 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old is not who you were when you were 14, 15, 16, 20, 30, whatever the case may be. You're constantly changing. So know that how you express and receive that intimate connection is going to evolve as you do. And oh, by the way, for some of you that are stagnant, your intimate life is going to be stagnant. That's just the harsh reality, because it's going to grow and evolve as you grow and evolve. And if you're not growing and evolving, you're going to see evidence of that and how you make intimate connection with your romantic partner. So let's talk about the types of intimacy that we all experience or should be experiencing in our relationships. The first one, believe it or not, I'm going to say the sex for last because everybody want to talk about sex. I love talking about sex. But here's the thing, and I said this a couple of sessions ago. You're not going to be worried about sexual intimacy when you're having to put a parent in the ground, or when you find out that a child is ill or suffering from addiction, or any of those adverse experiences that we have in our lives. I would imagine, can't say for sure because I don't know everybody, but I would imagine that sexual intimacy is the farthest thing from your mind. But what about emotional intimacy? What about emotional intimacy in good times, bad times, and in different times? What about your ability to cultivate that sense of closeness, and how that ability for you to cultivate that sense of closeness emotionally is impacting how you empathize with your partner, how you demonstrate respect to your partner, and how you communicate. You hear me use this term emotional intelligence, and if you all don't know what that is, I would encourage you to do some research on it. And I would encourage you to be courageous enough to evaluate yourself to determine where your level of emotional intelligence is. Just like we talk about our IQ, how intellectually smart we are. Your EQ evaluates how emotionally intelligent you are. In other words, do you have the ability to make healthy emotional connections with your romantic partner, with other people in your life? And if you don't have that ability to express your thoughts, your feelings, your wants, your needs, and your beliefs in a healthy, positive, and productive way, so much so that your partner is able to receive, accept, and understand what you're communicating to them, you're going to have a problem. I'm going to tell you, feel free to push back. I'm okay with that. If emotional intimacy is not present in your relationship, you're going to experience fractures or barriers or destruction in the other forms of intimacy that I'm going to be sharing with you. One of the most effective ways to establish emotional intimacy is human touch without sex. Think about times when you've been upset and you were comforted by a hug. You were comforted by a hand on the shoulder. You were comforted by the squiggle in the top of your head. You were comforted by the gentle rub of your cheek. You were comforted by the gentle kiss on your forehead or the stroke of your nose. That is a nonverbal way that we can all demonstrate emotional intimacy in our relationships. I really encourage you to be deliberate and intentional in strengthening your EQ, strengthening your emotional intelligence so that you have the ability to show up in your romantic relationship as a strong, healthy, emotionally available contributor to your romantic relationship. The next form of intimacy that I want to highlight is mental intimacy. I literally just said to my husband the other day that I'm going to say this in the PG version. If you cannot massage and stimulate my mind, I'm not interested in having you massage and stimulate anything else. Now, we weren't talking about that because that's not something that he doesn't do. In actuality, that's something that he has done literally since the first time we started communicating as adults. And it was so refreshing because so oftentimes people think that flattery will get them everything that they want, and it does not. And I say this as humbly and as graciously as I can. Do I respect, love, totally appreciate, and value the fact that my husband pays me compliments and he conveys to me on a regular basis how beautiful he thinks I am, or how funny he thinks I am, or how smart he thinks I am? I totally value that. However, I'm aware of it, right? Like, I know what I'm bringing to the table. I'm clear of what my worth and what my value is in contributing to this relationship. So if he never paid me a compliment, which is totally unheard of, that's just not something that he does. He compliments me all the time. But I'm comfortable in my own skin, and when I look in the mirror, I'm pleased with my reflection. I'm pleased with my physicality, my emotional well-being, my psychological well-being, my spiritual well-being, that doesn't mean that I don't have room for growth, because I do. But what I'm saying is I like Lauren. I like Lauren, and more importantly, I love Lauren. Not in a narcissistic or grandiose way, but in a very healthy way. And that's critical when it comes to mental intimacy. Because if you're somebody who is seeking all of this external validation, if you're somebody who is constantly needing to be validated and to be reaffirmed, and you don't think that you're smart, and you don't think that you're beautiful, or you don't think that you're handsome, or you don't think fill in the blank, then what ends up happening is it has the ability to break down the emotional and the mental intimacy, because there's a void. You have to know what you're bringing to the table. You have to know the full contents of your package. And if you are someone who's navigated life feeling less than, if you're someone who's been navigating life questioning your intellect, questioning your ability to have a substantive and fulfilling conversation, if you're someone that finds yourself constantly questioning your ability to add value to particular conversations or topics or interest, or just meaningful conversations, that's a problem, right? What I say all the time is I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. I don't. I want to be able to be mentally stimulated so that I can continue to grow and evolve into a stronger, healthier version of myself. And that, a big part of that is the fact that my husband stimulates me intellectually. My husband stimulates me mentally. I don't have to go outside of my home or outside of my relationship to be mentally stimulated all the time. Do I do that? Absolutely. Just by design of the nature of my work, and wanting to grow and surround myself with people that I can learn from. But a big part of what keeps our marriage healthy is our ability to respectfully challenge each other intellectually, our ability to mentally stimulate each other on a regular basis. I can't speak for anybody but me, but that's sexy to me. If I can have a substantive and fulfilling conversation, it was like one of the first things that I said to him, because I had, when we first reconnected, we had not communicated in 29 years. It had been 29 years. And I'm having this amazing conversation with him. And I'm like, we lost contact after we graduated from high school, blah, 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 blah. Where did you go to college? He went to art school, but he didn't go to academia, right? And I'm like, I can't tell. He's like, what do you mean? Because his conversation was so rich, because his conversation was so stimulating, that I was like, our first conversation was 5.5 hours, because we talked and laughed and chopped it up. And I got off that phone call thinking, it's special. What might come of this? Because he had me here. He had me here. And as time went on, and that mental intimacy, that intellectual intimacy kept growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. And here we are these years later, and we're still having mentally stimulating conversations that is just so fulfilling, and it's so rewarding. But a big part of that is because he knows he's capable and able, and I'm capable and able. So we have a level of confidence and assurance in knowing that we can stimulate each other mentally. The next type of intimacy is spiritual intimacy. Now, I don't push my beliefs onto anybody. I tell you that all the time. What you believe is what you believe. You rock out. That's your business. For us, spiritual intimacy was a big deal because both of us being of the Christian faith, both of us having surrendered our will and asking Jesus Christ to be our Lord and Savior, that was a prerequisite for both of us in sort of navigating where the relationship could potentially go. And again, I respect that that's not everybody's story. But for those of you where your spirituality is a significant part of your life, there has to be a connection there, right? And I've said before, and this is not being stated in a judgmental or critical way, it's genuinely and sincerely something that I didn't understand. Like, conceptually, I don't understand how an atheist and someone of the Christian faith or Muslim or Buddhist or whatever, I, I, that just doesn't make sense to me. But it doesn't need to make sense to me because it's not my relationship. I'm in a relationship with a fellow Christian, and spiritual intimacy was something that we both subscribed to, and we were committed to ensuring that we were operating from the same code of values and ethics in how we viewed life and how we viewed parenting and how we viewed finances, i.e., tithing and giving, how we viewed servitude. Those things were important to us within our relationship, and we each made it very clear from the beginning that if that wasn't present, then we could definitely be friends, but the relationship wouldn't be able to progress to anything beyond that because our spirituality is like number one on our values list, and anything beyond that was going to be us not being authentically who we are. So you have to decide based on where you are in your relationship if spiritual intimacy is something that's of significant importance to you. And if it is, you want to have those conversations. You want to discuss the spiritual boundaries and what your beliefs are around those spiritual foundational pillars that have the ability to break down the relationship and cause problems as it relates to spiritual intimacy. The next form, do I want to give you this? Nope. I said I was going to wait on sex. So the next intimacy that I want to talk about is experiential. And what that is that experiential intimacy is all about shared experiences, right? One of the things that Eric and I absolutely positively are aligned on is that other than certain TV shows, and I'm not even going to get into those because he watches stuff that I do not watch, and I watch stuff that he doesn't watch, and that's okay. But there's a lot of experiential intimacy that we share in that we like to do, we both like to travel. We're both foodies. We both are movie buffs. We both love the outdoors, though I have a much greater tolerance for heat than he does. That's my Caribbean DNA coming out. He got Caribbean DNA too, but that brother, no, he does not like to be outside in the heat. I love heat. So, you know, it's just a vast majority of things that we love to experience together. And one of the other things that I think it's really important when it comes to experiential intimacy is how open are you to having new experiences? One of the things that he and I talk about often is there are some firsts that we've experienced together, and we get really excited about that. Oh man, we've never done this or we've never done that. You want to try? It's just like anybody that knows me knows that I do not do heights. Me and heights are not friends. Mm-mm. When we were still on the East Coast, we went to Wildwood. You East Coasters know about Wildwood. He got me on this thing and had me free falling to my death. And I'm like, I cannot believe that you got me on this thing. He's like, oh, come on, babe, it'll be fun. Dropping to my death? That's fun? That's not fun. But you know what? I did it. I did it. I haven't done it since, but I did do it. I want to really encourage you that a big part of helping to keep your relationship fresh and alive and robust is to be willing to experience them first together. Have conversations about those things. Those things have the ability to build and to strengthen your relationship holistically across all of the different types of intimacy, but just foundationally, it has the ability to really strengthen your relationship and to bring you much closer together. Now, I'm gonna put this physical intimacy out there. But physical intimacy is not just about sex. It's not just about sex. It's everything that comes with physical touch. It's it's about relaxing. It's about relating. It's about sharing and giving and getting and expressing your love and your like for each other in a physical context. It's about connection. It's about giving and getting pleasure and closeness that's not just sexual. When you think about all of the different ways that you can connect physically, hugs, touches, caresses, those sorts of things, and all of those things have the ability to strengthen sexual intimacy and to really take that aspect of your relationship to a whole nother level. Now, being a couple marriage and family therapist, a lot of times the reasons that people come into therapy is because, most people tell me, well, Dr. Pitts, we have communication problems. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. When you get to the root, when you get to the essence of what's going on in the relationship, I would say, I can't speak for any of my colleagues, but I'll say, based on the clients that I work with, 99.9% of the time, the issues that they're having are not communication issues at the root. The communication issues is a byproduct or a subcategory, if you will, of a much deeper issue. And a lot of times, that deeper issue is because all types of intimacy in the relationship are fractured. Well, what causes these fractures? What types of things are are inhibiting your ability to make these intimate connections within your romantic relationship? Believe it or not, a lot of people are afraid of intimacy. They're afraid of intimacy because they've been hurt. My husband and I were having a conversation earlier today, and I was saying that, I've, at 56 years old, I've only had 5 long-term committed relationships in my adulthood, and he's one of them. And I was saying that even though I went through significant difficulty in each of those relationships, particularly early on in my life, those issues were on me. It was my junk. I was the walking wounded, and I made a lot of mistakes and did a lot of things that created significant pain in those relationships. But beyond that, right? Fear, fear of being hurt will cause you to shy away from intimacy. And what I had gone through in 3 of those relationships, I even though I went through things that hurt me, those things didn't break me. But it was in one of the last relationships that I was in, when Eric and I connected after 29 years, that it broke me. It absolutely positively broke me. And the reason why it broke me and really had me in a place and space that I thought that I would never be in, which was, I really was in a headspace where I had given up on love. I had given up on love. I had lost all hope in um, in the institution and the idea of marriage. I'm like, you know what? I don't ever want to know this magnitude of pain ever again in my life. And it was just so devastated that I didn't realize that that fear of intimacy had kicked in and had consumed me. And I was paralyzed with fear of ever coming to know that degree of pain ever again. And it all stemmed from a devastating, you know, loss of love in a relationship, and the relationship just crashing and burning. And because of that, I just was like, you know what? I'm good. I'm gonna go back to being a whoremonger, and I'll just repent and keep it going, and I'm not gonna worry about it. But that wasn't where my heart was. It wasn't where my heart was. But at the root of my stuff, because of childhood trauma and what have you, I already had a fear of abandonment and a fear of rejection that I had been addressing in therapy, and truly believed that I had overcome those fears. I was using them more as stepping stones to connect with my clients and to be a healthier, stronger, better version of myself in life. But that fear of rejection and that fear of abandonment kicked back in, and I said, you know what? I would rather be by myself and just, have some of the needs met than committing and taking a chance on experiencing a level of vulnerability and transparency that at one point in time I felt like was just going to destroy me. I didn't want to know that again. A lot of times what inhibits intimacy is fear of the loss of independence. I have people who tell me all the time they feel like I'm really hard on black women. um, I don't think that I am. I think that my approach to the truth frustrates people sometimes. I think that people don't want to be held accountable and don't want to have the hard conversations. I think that because I am as direct as I am, I think that there are times that people think that I'm not compassionate, or empathetic to the challenges that women have gone through, particularly black women. And I said, that's not the case at all. I'm extremely empathetic, but I don't want anybody to stay in that place and space of defeat. And I know that place and space because I've been there. And what I say is, for all of the sass and all of the I don't need nobody and let me tell you one more thing, and some of that nastiness that we see, that I'm not saying it's not demonstrated in other women, but specifically right now I'm addressing black women, is that that comes from pain. That comes from unresolved trauma, whether it be childhood trauma or adult trauma. And in order for you to be the strongest, healthiest, best version of yourself, you have to be able to heal that pain. Otherwise, you you self-sabotage. The very thing that you're the most afraid of is the very thing that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy in your life, because nobody is going to respect you, love you, value, and appreciate you when all you do is give them your butt to kiss. That's not going to happen. I can't tell you how many men that I've had on my caseload over the years that tell me that either they won't deal with black women at all, or they are and they're being punished for the things that the previous partner did to them. Well, that's that baggage. And how can we have healthy, fulfilling, sustainable relationships if we're not willing to address the baggage? And I say it over and over and over again. It's the elephant in the room that people don't like to hear. Each of us is the common denominator in every relationship that we found ourselves in. So, how can you find yourself in a healthy, loving, fulfilling, sustainable relationship if you're not willing to deal with the issues that exist in the common denominator? You have to be able to do that. The lack of safety that we experience is part of why all of that drag nastiness and all of these other things inhibit intimacy in our relationships. There needs to be an emotionally safe space to be authentically who you are. Nobody can guarantee you that they're never going to say or do anything to hurt you. But here's the thing. I say, and I've been saying for a long time now, unless you're a serial killer or just a sociopath or a psychopath, I don't know anybody who wakes up in the morning and pulls out a tablet and says, hey, let me check off all of the ways that I'm going to hurt, disrespect, belittle, degrade, demean the person that I profess to love about, to the person that I profess to love. So we have to be willing to extend that grace, because we're fallible. We're absolutely positively fallible, and the people that we're in relationships with are fallible too. So we have to decide, are we going to take everything personal And oh, by the way, accuse the person of being exactly like the last three partners were because they hurt us? Or are we going to give ourselves permission to heal? One of the persons signing is saying healthy love promotes healing. It absolutely positively does. The problem though is a lot of people don't know what healthy love is. People need to, they haven't had the example. They don't know. Why? Because so many people are relationship hopping and they're not taking the time to heal before they enter the next relationship. So they're taking a 12-piece set of luggage from one relationship to the next, to the next, to the next, and more damage is being done in each of those relationships. And all of that damages one's ability to develop healthy, intimate connections within their romantic relationships. You have to be willing, instead of talking about, you have to be willing to be man enough and woman enough to acknowledge why you're afraid. And that level of vulnerability and transparency starts within. You have to be willing to say, you know how I ended up in this relationship or in these relationships where everybody that I've been dealing with has cheated on me? Because I wasn't whole. Because I made a conscious decision to ignore red flags. Because I convinced myself that I could save that person, that they weren't going to do it to me, that I could make it all better. Why are you ignoring red flags? You know why you ignore red flags? Because you are afraid of being alone. But this is what I tell you, you don't have to be alone if you would take time to heal and position yourself to activate that law of attraction that brings wholeness to you. We've been hearing our whole lives how opposites attract. You know what people don't talk a lot about? They don't talk about how like attracts. Many of you are in unhealthy relationships, and your intimate partner is a mirror reflection of your own brokenness, of your own woundedness. How you break that cycle is you have to take time to heal. You have to heal you. One of the things that we say in treatment is the first step to recovery is admitting that you have a problem. How can you heal if you won't even acknowledge that you're broken? You have to be willing to do that. So, how do you build healthy love, healthy intimacy in your relationships? Slow down, keep it simple. Share what's hard to say, is what one of my colleagues suggests. You have to be honest with yourself about what you're feeling. Folk want to talk to me all the time about anger. Anger is a secondary emotion. It's the camouflage. It's the smoke and mirrors. What are the raw, authentic emotions that you're feeling? You want to be able to put the finger on the pulse of what it is you're really experiencing. I'm hurting. I'm scared. I love you. I miss you. I can't trust you. I'm insecure. I don't like me. But you know what people do? They project and transfer all of that self loathing, all of those negative emotions. They project and transfer them onto their intimate partners instead of acknowledging that that's your own emotional experience. They don't want to be honest with themselves. So it's easier to blame you because of what you said and what you did, and why all of the unhappiness in the relationship is your fault. It reminds me of something a former partner used to say. He would say, you know, women think that the way to a man's heart a lot of times is through an orgasm. So you have women that, and we see it on social media all the time, everybody's half naked, got all this stuff hanging out, leave nothing to the imagination. And he said, men that genuinely and sincerely that are going to love you and care about you and want to be with you, they need to like you. They don't have to like you to have sex with you. But men that genuinely and sincerely want to develop a healthy, loving, fulfilling, and sustainable relationship with you, they need to be able to like you. And when they like you, they then are more open and receptive to falling in love with you and sustaining that love in healthy ways. The same thing applies for women. If I don't like you, I'm not going to give you access to my heart to love you, and you darn sure not getting these cookies. I'm just saying. I had to like you back in the day. I had to like you. If I didn't like you, you wasn't getting the cookies. But folk don't want to have them conversations. And then you have people who don't like or love themselves, and they'll engage in sexual intimacy with you and then feel like the scum of the earth later. And that vicious cycle of that shattered sense of self that continues to diminish and erode keeps that vicious cycle going. So you lose yourself because you didn't like or love yourself. You gave the most intimate part of you, your mind and your body, to someone that doesn't respect, value, or appreciate you. And you keep that going. You have to be willing to protect yourself in a healthy way, but also be emotionally intimate in order to have a healthy and sustaining relationship. The spiritual intimacy, I pretty much touched on that, but you have to ask yourself, if you're in a relationship with somebody who's not spiritually inclined, you have to have a conversation about what spirituality means to you. The Bible talks about being equally yoked or being unequally yoked with non-believers. Again, I'm not forcing my beliefs on you, but I'm going to tell you, your relationship will be impacted if there's misalignment as it relates to spiritual intimacy. How can it not? That's just like, if you want to look at it in the context of sexual intimacy, since that's the one that people love to talk about the most. If you have a high libido and you're in a relationship with somebody that thinks that sex is overrated or they could take it or leave it, what does that look like? What does that look like over time when those needs aren't being met? Well, spiritual intimacy is no different. You always in church by yourself. You go into conferences and conventions and the whole 9 yards. You're away, your partner's home, or whatever the case may be. Over time, that creates problems. Don't think that it won't. I know some of you that are listening, you know that it does. You know I'm telling you the truth. So why not, for those of you that aren't in relationships right now, why not give yourself permission to have those open, honest conversations from the door? Not having that conversation opens the door for red flags to arise. You're going to either address it now or you're going to address it later. You don't want to address it when you know, months or years in, and you still arguing, fussing, fighting about why you don't ever go to church with me. Your moral compass can be impacted if you have a spiritual foundation and your partner doesn't. Think about that. The physical intimacy piece. Phew. There are so many things that can impact physical intimacy, which is why it's so important for your relationship to not be just based on physical intimacy. All types of stuff can happen. infidelity, uh, busy schedule, physical illness, having children, grief and loss, um, some sort of tragedy. Like, there's so many different things that can impact physical intimacy, that if that's the only thing that your relationship is built on, what are you going to do when stuff changes? As you age, um, you know, things change. Medicine can impact functioning when it comes to physical intimacy within a sexual context. You have to be willing um, to have some variety, whether it's holding hands or touching. My husband talks all the time. He tries to act like he doesn't like it when I climb on his back, but I know he loves it. Well, sometimes, you know what? Sometimes I lay on his back like a baby baboon. He was like, "Oh my God, can you get off my back?" No, I'm not. He knows if I've had a rough day, chances are I'm going to climb on his back. That's my safe space. That's my security. I just need that connection. I don't know why the back is a place of comfort for me, but it just is. I like laying on his back. Sometimes I just hug him like a bear. It just all depends. We go to the movies. Even when we weren't together, if I was going someplace with him, just as friends, he was riding down the road with his hand resting on my leg while he's driving. Not on the gear indicator. His hand is resting on my leg. That right hand is going to be on my left thigh, whether he's mad at me about something or whether he's in the best of moods. It's that physical touch. Hugging me, kissing me, just whatever. There's more than just sex when it comes to physical intimacy to keep that connection strong. The last thing that I want to put on your radar is, well, next to the last thing, is that experiential, right? We talked about doing things together. So you have to know that your intimacy is going to experience stages. It's going to it's going to go through ebbs and flows and peaks and valleys just like every other aspect of your relationship. So how do you increase intimacy in all of these areas that we've talked about? You have to be able to identify what your needs are. People make the assumption that their intimate partner is a mind reader. And yes, you may know each other really well, but again, you're constantly growing and evolving. So your needs may change. And you can't make the assumption that your partner knows what those needs are. You have to be willing to convey what your needs are. Well, how can you convey what your needs are if you haven't taken the time to identify them? You, in and of yourself as an individual, you have to be able to clearly articulate what your needs are. You have to be willing to put forth effort to express each of these types of intimacy that I've shared with you tonight. Effort is everything. It's everything. You have to be willing, even in the smallest of things. It's like I'm seeing clients all day. My husband's a truck driver. Well, guess what? I fixed his dinner before he left so that he could have a meal. We had lunch together, form of emotional intimacy. Well, he ate breakfast. I watched him eat while I was talking to him. We had lunch together, and then I prepared his dinner so that he could have a decent home cooked meal before he hits the road again. Was I tired? Yeah. Could I have been doing paperwork instead? Absolutely. But he needs to know that I will always put forth the effort to maintain that connection with him so that he's clear on how valuable and important he is to me in this marriage and in life holistically. Date nights. So oftentimes people stop dating Why are you not dating? Everybody's so busy. Your kids involved in 500 activities, and your soccer mom and football dad, and you all these things, but you're so busy being busy that you've lost sight of each other. Schedule date nights, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. Little getaways. Do a overnight staycation. If the money's funny and the change is strange, do an overnight staycation in your room. Let your kids stay at their friend's house or grandma and grandpa's house or whoever the case may be. But you have to have that quality time. You don't have to go out of the house to have an amazing date night. Get creative. You can do that. You absolutely positively can do that. Feel sexy. Feel sexy. My husband told me earlier today, he said, "You know what? You one sexy son." I said, "I know. I know this. Thank you. It's intentional. Hello." And if you don't feel good about yourself, if you don't feel sexy, if you don't, and this is for men and women, if you don't feel desirable, well, what the heck are you doing about it? Or are you just sitting around in your ilkiness? No, I want to be desired. I want to look in the mirror and be pleased with what I see. I shop with him in mind. I get dressed with him in mind. Why? Because I feel sexy. I feel desirable. He thinks he hit the jackpot. I agree. It's okay. You have to feel that. If you don't like you, if you're not pleased with you, why would your partner be? Just saying. Sometimes you have to take charge, and I don't mean this in a felony type of way. Sometimes don't necessarily wait where physical intimacy, i.e., sexual intimacy, is concerned. Don't always wait for your partner to take the initiative. You can do that. And even for those of you that are abstaining and you're just dating or whatever, you don't have to wait for them to take your hand to hold hands or to kiss or to squeeze their butt or to hug them or whatever. You can take the initiative. You can take charge to do these things. It's okay. It's welcomed. It's showing, hey, interested in you. Hey, like you. Hey, desire you. When my husband is home, I feel his butt at least 10 times a day. I like butts. I don't know what to tell you. That's what I do. I comment on his legs. He's got beautiful legs. What? I do that. He knows that I'm going to do it. Why? Because I'm a take charge kind of gal. But then there's times that he takes charge. And then the last thing that I want to share with you tonight is I want you to be courageous enough and responsible enough to redefine intimacy for yourself. I shared with you information from a relational and a clinical context based upon human behavior and relationship research and what have you that I do as a behavioral mental health and relationship practitioner. But these things don't necessarily have to be applicable to you. My encouragement to you is redefine what intimacy is and needs to be in a healthy way in your relationship. And you'll find that intimacy grows much, much, much healthier. Does anybody have any questions for me? Any questions on intimacy? Going once. Going twice. All right. So here's the deal, folks. You can always inbox me, DM me, just reach out if you have questions. Any questions that are submitted to me through private means, unless you tell me to disclose your name and your question, I'll address the question during the live, but I won't say that it's your question unless you tell me to. Tell your friends, tell your family members, grown folk, because these definitely grown folk conversations. Tune in every Thursday for Dr. Pitt's Tips Live. The way that the lives are set up is that you can access whether you're on Facebook or not. I'm live on Instagram too. So please, 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 this information. Look, let me just keep it real with you. I'm not tripping off the numbers. I'm not worried about you telling family, friends, and partners and what have you because of numbers. I'm worried about the information. I want people to be healthy. I want people to have healthy, loving, fulfilling, and sustainable relationships. I want people to get out of their own way. And I've said this to you all before. Having spent the first part of my clinical career, a large part of the first part of my clinical career working with kids, man, the condition that our kids are in is a mess. It's a mess because so many of their households are a mess. It's a mess because their parents are a mess. It's a mess because their caregivers are a mess. And I've suffered. I've suffered a lot in life, in love, and in relationships. And people throw that word empath all around. A lot of people don't even really know that there are different types of empaths and that there's different ways to show that you're an empath and to teach people how to deal with you based upon the type of empath that you are. But I'm a dragon empath. I feel everything. And I don't want people, if at all possible, to have to know the magnitude of hurt and pain and devastation and loss and rejection that I've known. I'm not looking to be anybody's savior or anything like that. I just want to be able to give people the tools to be the strongest, healthiest version of themselves that they can be so that they can live life more fully, more freely, and more fulfilling. And that's all I have. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. Tell your peeps. Tell your folks. Let them know. Dr. Pitt's Tips Live every Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll see you next Thursday. Next Thursday, what are we talking about? Next Thursday, next Thursday, I'm talking about whether or not you are habitually positive or negative in your relationships. That is going to be a powerful conversation, so you don't want to miss it. Y'all have a great rest of your week. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you back here, same time, next Thursday. Have a good night, everybody. Bye bye.